Hi guys, thank you for joining me today. We're going to discuss how you can succeed this year in Mrs. Summers' 8th grade American History class, and I am glad each and every one of you is in my class. So let's first begin with the road to success, and what that means, this is what basically everything in all these slides are the things that will help you stay on that road. So we'll talk about the things that you'll need every day in class. We'll talk about the different activities that you'll be doing, and we'll talk about assignments as well. So the first thing that you'll need every day is a composition notebook or a spiral. And I know that on your school supply list, it stated a composition notebook for history. So yes, you'll need that. But I did have some students ask if they could use a spiral, and of course I allowed them. But I will say this, the spiral isn't as sturdy as the composition notebook. And so unless you're really careful, you'll lose some of your pages. And I promise you, you will not want to lose anything. The other thing you'll need every day, of course, is a pen or pencil, naturally. Colored pencils will also be useful every day. A lot of students like to color code their notes, but we also will do other activities that will require colors. And then, of course, earbuds, and that is also on your school supply list. So please, please, please make sure you have those with you every day. I do not have any in class. And last but not least, please bring water. It is so important that you stay hydrated. A lot of my students who would get headaches, many times they were just not drinking enough water. So bring water. Make sure it has a very tight, secure lid so we don't have any accidents, especially with our Chromebooks. And then last but not least, I would suggest a folder. Or if you have a little space in maybe a binder that you're using from another class, that you could actually label a little section in there for history. And this is for some of those pages that you may not have enough time in class to tape into your academic notebook, but you'll need to. And so this will allow you to put it in a safe place until you get home, and you can do that. So let's talk about what you will do every single day on a regular basis in class, and as well as what you will do when you're absent. The academic notebook. I apologize, that picture is not very good. So the academic notebook is what I call your composition or your spiral. You will need to record everything in it. Think of this as your own review manual for the STAR test, as well as every single test you'll take with me throughout the whole year, as well as your quizzes. I give open note quizzes, and if you don't have everything in the right spot, then that will hurt you on that quiz grade. So it's important that you record everything. But what will you record? Number one, notes. Every day we'll take notes. Now, notes, I don't spend a lot of time with notes. I'm talking maybe 15 minutes of class that you'll have me sharing with you the highlight of the lesson. And then we'll move into activities, but that still requires you to record the what you're learning of your activities inside your academic notebook. And you'll also have various assignments, such as a sensory figure or a timeline or a mind map and that sort of thing. So these will all go into sequential order in your academic notebook, and you will have a table of contents. So that way you'll know what should be on page 23 or 35. And like I mentioned a moment ago, but there will be notebook quizzes. So when I say open up to page, or I would say something like on page 23, we discuss the colonial regions. Tell me what the economic and geographic differences were between those regions. And so all you'll do is you'll open up and you'll look at that page and you'll have your answer, and then you'll be able to answer it. And so it's a wonderful way to review, but it's also just so important to keep it organized. And then the question comes, what do I do when I'm absent? Well, I have something on the wall, so when you're absent, you'll check that wall. It'll be a folder for your class. You'll pull out what you missed. It'll have your name on it, and you will make sure you have those pages, but the question might be, where do they belong in your notebook? Well, you would check the master notebook. That'll be by my desk, or you will check a peer, someone in that classroom. But you will also be able to access the student agenda on Google Classroom. The student agenda is something that I will post at the beginning of every unit. You will find every single lesson we did in class, as well as links to every lesson, every note, every activity. So there is never an excuse not to be able to get your work done and turned in. In fact, a lot of students found it very helpful, especially if they were absent for any length of time. If you remember, we had flu season. That was pretty crazy last year. And then there were some students that went on a vacation. So they were gone for an extended period of time, and they came back and they handed me all their work, and then they moved on, and it was like they didn't miss a beat. So I'm trying to make sure you have every resource you need for success. The other important thing on this student agenda will be the review material. And in that review material, at the very bottom, after all your lessons and all the links, you'll have an area where you'll have Quizlets that you can review, as well as extra videos that I've given, as well as your keynotes and a glossary and just a few other items. Okay, so let's talk about habits. Habits are essential. You can have bad habits and you can have good habits. And you are at such a pivotal time in your life. You guys are about to go to high school in 1 year. And so think of 8th grade as this last year of training. You are now at a beautiful, mature spot in your life. I love teaching 8th grade. And so this is such a cool thing. And I've always enjoyed watching my students come to me at the very beginning of the year. And at the end, they've developed some beautiful habits. And I've had students who've moved on who've told me they've used these habits with great success. So what are the habits? Number 1, your planner. Now, for you, the school issues a planner. And I love this quote by Albert Einstein. Paper is to write things down that we need to remember. Our brains are used to think. Get it out of your head. Don't think that, oh, I'll remember the test, or I'll remember the quiz, or I'll remember when that's due. Just write it down. You have a skill issue planner, and if you think about it, you have to have it every day, because in order to use the restroom, you have to have that planner. So in this planner, besides marking going to the restroom, you will also be writing when your assignments are due. You'll talk about projects, especially for my pre-AP classes. They'll have the History Day Fair project. That'll be due right before Christmas break. And then you'll also have an essay, plus projects from other classes. And of course, tests. On the student agenda, you will immediately know when that test is. So I would just get your planner out and write it down. And then you know, and I would count backwards and know how many days until that test. And then you could do a little review here and there, but we'll talk more about that later. And last but not least, activities. Sometimes we just don't finish them in class. So you need to write that down and make sure that you get that completed before you come to class the next day. All right, so another great habit that you should maybe already have, many of you probably do, but if you don't, you need to think about this. It's a workstation. What do I mean by a workstation? It's basically a spot in your home or some place that you know you'll always have your pens, you'll always have your pencils, you'll have every essential thing you need in order to study successfully and not have to waste any time. So you could have a desk. I grew up, I didn't have a desk in my room, so I used the kitchen table, and my parents were real good about not being too loud or what have you. I only had one little sister, so it really wasn't a lot of noise, but I used the kitchen table. I loved the background noise too, so it was very comforting. But these days, you guys are probably on the go a lot more than I was. I know my children were when they were growing up. So you might actually have a workstation in your backpack. And what I mean by that is you are doing most of your studying, most of your reviews while you're traveling to your different activities that you guys do outside of school. Or maybe you have a long bus ride and you don't want to have to do a lot of homework when you get home, and you're pretty good about being pretty focused on that bus. So you will need to always have the things you need. But the point is this: build the habit of a place that you will work. And I will also add this in, but don't look at your phone. Turn off your notifications. Turn your phone over. Hide your phone. It is so easy for us to be distracted. And you don't want to develop that habit where you constantly are taking your mind off of what you're doing and wasting time by looking at your phone. And it's like this thing that sucks you into it. Next thing you know, you've wasted 30 minutes at a time for bed. All right, so now we're back to the classroom. So let's talk about some assignments that you will be given on a regular basis. Some of these are things that you'll do out of class. But some will also be things that you do in class. So I don't believe in a lot of homework because I think I have you for 90 minutes. Therefore, we should be able to get most of our stuff done. But that's not always the case. So if there is, it most likely will be finishing your homework. Okay, so if I tell you if you maybe didn't work diligently in class, or maybe the class time was shortened for some activity outside, some thing we had to do in the cafeteria, then I'll just let you know that this needs to be finished at home and it's due by the next class period. However, there will be about 3 assignments, 3 or 4 that I'll give you that you will do mostly out of the classroom. Let's begin with your vocabulary assignments. So number 1, complete the assignment. Just do it. I've given you a glossary. I've given you every definition you need. You don't even have to spend time looking for it. Just pull it up on your phone. And you will have a quiz over it. So you'll have a vocabulary assignment and a quiz the quiz is usually always the day before the test. I love maps. I taught 1 year of 9th grade geography, and geography was my favorite class when I was in high school, and I love maps. They're so good for us. So you will be working on maps because basically we're watching the growth of the United States. So we're going to map it. Edpuzzle. I'll explain more about this in class, but this will be something that you'll do at home. Basically, it is a video that you'll watch, usually about 7 minutes or so, and there'll be embedded questions. And if you don't know the answer to that question, simply rewind that portion of the video and then watch it again, and then you'll be able to answer that question. And students, actually, most of them make A's and B's on this, and if they don't, it's because they actually didn't do it on time. So do it. And I will mention, for those of you who maybe have trouble with your technology, I am in class every morning at 8 o'clock. Please come see me. Let me know you're coming just in case I have a duty that morning. But please come in. You can use a Chromebook and get it all done. I love to have students in my room that are working, and I love the company. Oh, and these will be graded. All right, quickly, we're running out of time. Let's talk a little bit about review, ways to review, and what to review. So, spaced practice. Start planning early for your test. Like I said, as soon as the unit starts, you'll know when the test is. Space your review time a little bit over the duration, and then always review older material first. So if you notice this little picture here, so for instance, you have a lesson with me on Monday, review it on Tuesday. Lesson with me on Wednesday, review it on Thursday. Just a little bit, maybe 15 minutes every day, and you will have ingrained this information deeper into your mind, and this is actually research-based. The other thing is review information from each class, but not immediately after the class. Let it kind of get absorbed in your brain and then recall it. The other thing is called retrieval practice. This is also brain-based. I have given you practice tests for every test you'll take in my class. I want you to take those tests over and over and over again. They're not graded, and you can take it multiple times. The other thing I would highly suggest are making flashcards for all the vocabulary and key people, key events that you'll need to know as well. And then I post a podcast, which basically a podcast and video cast. It's for every single unit. You'll listen. I would suggest listen before and after each lesson. You could do it during all that review time. And then also, so let me go back a little bit because I know I'm rushing. The podcast is basically for the test review, but the video cast is a little bit of a review for each unit. And these are essential to be able to go over again right for the test. And my students requested the podcast. So if I missed a test and didn't do a test review podcast, I heard about it the next class. So what's your test review checklist? Complete the review sheet that I'll give you for the test. Make sure your academic notebook is filled with all the correct information. Have you reviewed the podcast and the video cast? Have you looked at your textbook online, the vocabulary assignment, Quizlets, extra videos I posted, as well as the keynotes I posted? So basically, in summary, take good notes in class every day, complete all the assignments even when you're absent, and review, review, review. I am so excited about this year for you. Keep this in mind. There is no substitute for hard work. There's none. And my students that put forth that hard work, their confidence and their pride in themselves is catching. And it brings me joy, and it brings them joy, and I look so forward to getting to know each and every one of you. See you soon.